And I've done CPS cases. You know what ended up happening? You'd have the baby at the prison. But before you have the baby at the prison, your attorney would probably file motions. Please let her out. She's pregnant. She wants to reconsider. And I'd be like, probably not. So you'd have the baby at the prison. Hello. All right. So Ms. Roper, of course, there have been some issues with you on probation. So in order to successfully complete probation, you got to have a place to stay, right? And you can't be jumping around from place to place. Whatever your problems are, whatever the miscommunications are, whatever is going on with you and your family or the people you're living with, even if you move somewhere else, those problems are still going to remain. And people need to learn how to communicate, and they need to learn how to communicate without anger. And they need to learn how to communicate without being vicious in their communication. Because there's a way to talk to somebody if you have an issue with that person, as opposed to being unkind in your conversation with them. And Brenda, I will tell you, you know what I discovered? The saying, I feel, at the beginning of a sentence, that sort of makes everybody not be on alert for negative things that are about to come after I feel. It's sort of like when I send an email and I say, good morning.
Yeah.
The temperature hasn't been fixed in 3 years. But see, the good morning softens the blow. So my understanding is you're asking to be transferred to Guadalupe County?
No, she informed me that the address that I had given her, I live with my parents.
Mhm.
And my parents recently moved from Converse and they moved to Cibolo.
Mhm.
And she recently told me that that address that I had given her for my parents' address, before then I was living basically in my own apartment, but it was under my sister's name. I guess some issues came about with that because she's never there and she works out of town. So the apartment complex didn't want me there due to my felony probation. Yes. So me and my children had to move back in with my family, my mother and my father.
Mhm.
So I had gave her the 111 Bob White Cibolo, Texas address, and she had informed me that was out of their county, that it was Guadalupe.
Okay.
I had mentioned to her that I didn't plan on staying there way too long. I gave my parents a 3 to 4 month time frame for me to just find a place and get somewhere else, that if I could still stay on the Bexar County probation. And she stated because I do live out of the county that I have to transfer.
All right. And how many children do you have?
I have 2, and I've currently found out I have another one.
So here's the thing about that. How old are your children?
5 and 2.
All right. So let me explain something that I hope you already know as a parent. Children need stability. They can't be moving from place to place to place to place. And I can tell you, I understand why you were probably saying, hey, let me live at my sister's place. The apartment will be under her name. But you know, at some point, the apartment complex was going to find out. And now that's just caused more upheaval. It would have been better for you to speak to the apartment complex and for your sister to speak to the apartment complex and say, this is what my history is. This is what my sister's history is. Will she be allowed to stay here? So even when you're looking for a new place to stay, you still need to tell them the history, because ultimately they're going to find out about it anyway. It's sort of like when you're looking for employment. And as a defense attorney, I had several clients. I would always tell them, get in the door, get your interview, let them see you, talk to you. And then you can tell them, by the way, this is my background. I'm trying to better myself. Either you're going to say yes or no. But if you're dishonest and they find out about it, they're just going to think, oh, you're acting in conformity to what you're charged with because you're being dishonest with me. And there have been some people who've been doing great things at their job, and the employer finds out about their history and they fire them.
I just had 3 different people go to bat for me for my position now, so trust me, I understand that.
Yes.
portion of it.
So what I can tell you, and I could be wrong on this, maybe there's an apartment complex or someplace that would accept you, but probably the only place you're going to get is either you're going to have to look into getting your own home, or either you're gonna have to look into renting a home. Which to me, renting a home, renting an apartment, that's just money going down the drain a little bit. Although I used to live in an apartment, so sometimes that's where you start, right?
That's where the portion of me and my parents, my mother is forcing the issue for building my credit at this moment.
Yes. So maybe if there are no issues with staying with your parents, maybe you just need to stay there and decompress and let your children have a regular place to stay where they're not worried about moving in 3 months, because that's a lot of upheaval for a child. If you think about it, you're an adult. Think about the upheaval. Heck, I'm moving offices down the hallway and I don't want to do it, but it is a lot. And so when you move children that much and they go to a different home, they have to get used to the rhythms of that household. They have to get used to the rules, because that's technically not their house. I know grandparents love their grandchildren, but still they have to get used to all of that. They have to get comfortable with just going to the refrigerator and opening it without asking, right? So I'm gonna have you staying there. Don't cause any problems while you're there. And if your grandmother has certain rules for the grandchildren, follow them. If you think your mother loves you and loves your grandchildren, anything that your grandmother has for rules for your grandchildren, you know they're doing it from their heart. They wouldn't be doing
I have no
anything.
say so with my children when it comes to my dad.
Okay, see,
I
there you
have
go.
no say so.
Well-
What he says, go, he helps me raise them the best with the way he raised us. And
Mhm.
it's a very sturdy situation with my children.
All right.
So yes, being back at my parents' house has been, because I was there first and then I left to try to move into my own place with the help of my sister. And that only lasted 3 months. So that's how I moved back. So anytime I kind of feel uncomfortable, my parents are always there.
All right. So this is what we're going to do. I know you say you're going to be with your parents for 3 months, but before you move again from your parents' house, you're going to have to get permission from the court.
Yes.
And when I say permission, because I want you to be prepared, we're going to have another compliance hearing before you move. And I'm going to want to plan, and I'm going to want to know that you've informed wherever you stand what your history is, because I don't want you or the children to continue to have upheaval.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
That's
So I'll allow the transfer to Guadalupe County. Can you all still do your thing or no?
So, Your Honor, I think the main issue with the Guadalupe County, we can't do the field visits there. She will still report to Bear County because it's a reciprocal.
Mhm.
So the reporting will remain. It's just the field visits they will not do because it is Guadalupe County. So can we cease the field visits until she returns back to Bear County
How often is she reporting?
monthly?
All right, so we'll cease the field visits, but I'm going to want you to report twice. And one of those reporting must be by Zoom, and it must be from where she's living.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else?
I guess I'll tell the truth on this one. Me and her recently just took a drug test and it did come out with THC, and she would recommend until I guess weekly or twice a month drug test the levels. I did mention to her that the last time I did smoke was before Thanksgiving, right around the time I found out I was pregnant. And that might be the reason why it's still stuck inside my system, but I don't do any type of marijuana, especially since I found out about the name.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You're in deferred adjudication for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Is smoking marijuana worth 20 years in prison? I mean, I could send you to prison for 20 years, and you know what would end up happening? What would end up happening is you would cry. And I would say, well, you're on probation, and these are consequences because there are rules. And I'd send you to prison potentially for 20 years. And I've done CPS cases. You know what ended up happening? You'd have the baby at the prison. But before you have the baby at the prison, your attorney would probably file motions. Please let her out. She's pregnant. She wants to reconsider. And I'd be like, probably not. So you'd have the baby at the prison. When you had the baby, either they would let your parents come to the prison to pick up the baby, and take the baby. But even when they did that, Child Protective Services will be called. And your other children that you have, because this is an aggravated assault, you'd have to serve at least 10 years flat before you're released. So you'd have a child who probably would have gone to prom, graduated, moved out, whatever, and you wouldn't be a part. So, well, I mean, you're acting like it's worth it because you did it. And I think you told me because she was going to end up telling me that you tested positive.
Well, it really just came out really because it was basically the truth on it. And it was around the time of the frustration of the moving, and I didn't feel like everything was going right. I feel like everything was falling down the drain. And on occasionally I don't smoke. So yes, it was around that weak moment of time, and I don't feel like I need to have those weak moment of times.
And so you would have had to have you would have to have obtained that marijuana from somebody, unless you're growing it at the apartment on the patio. And so that meant that your children were smelling marijuana, which is not good. Yeah, I mean, they do. Marijuana gets in your clothing. I don't smoke, I don't drink, and I don't drink because I think alcohol tastes nasty, but that's just my choice. But I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do any of that. But you know what? I can tell you every person in the courthouse who smokes because I smell it. I can tell you everybody in the courthouse who drinks because I can smell it. So I guarantee you, your children, maybe they knew it was marijuana, maybe they didn't, but I guarantee you they could smell it. And children are building up their immune system, and the last thing they need is someone smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, doing marijuana around them. All right, so what I want to do is she's going to be tested for levels. And if those levels don't go down, file a motion to revoke.
How often do you want to test it?
And we're going to do the UA hotline. So I want her to do a test every 2 weeks.
And then when she comes out negative, do you want it to continue?
Yeah, we're going to do the UA hotline through the new year and see how that is. And I want you to remember that your parents are grandparents. They're not supposed to be raising your children. You understand? All right, anything else? All right, we will see you. Don't come back here for nonsense.
This case leaves you with a question that's bigger than just Brenda Roper. It's about choices, pressure, and consequences. Because what we just witnessed wasn't just a routine probation hearing. It was a crossroads moment. One path leads to stability, rebuilding, and being present for her children. The other, a decade or more behind bars, missing everything that matters. Think about the weight of that. 2 young kids at home, another child on the way, a second chance already given by the court. And yet, even a single mistake, just one moment of weakness, can threaten to tear all of that apart. That's the reality of probation. It's not just about staying out of trouble, it's about proving every single day that you deserve to stay free. Judge Boyd didn't just warn her, he painted the full picture. Prison, losing her children, giving birth in custody, watching life move on without her. That wasn't exaggeration. That was the reality waiting on the other side of poor decisions. Now the question is, what happens next? Will she take this warning seriously and finally build the stability her children need? Or will this be another case where opportunity is wasted and consequences come crashing down? Because in cases like this, the court can only give chances for so long. What do you think? Does she turn her life around? Or is this just the beginning of something worse?